I walked into my parents' house wearing the wedding dress I'd had custom made. Riley twirled under the chandelier, champagne flute in hand, surrounded by people clapping like she just cured cancer. She saw me standing there and smiled like nothing was wrong, like this was just another fun little story for her to post online. 3 weeks earlier, everything was still intact. February in Santa Fe was cold, but peaceful, the kind of quiet that wrapped around your ribs and held you gently. Elliot and I were finally planning the life we wanted. He was steady, thoughtful, an architect with rough hands and a soft voice. He never raised his voice, never interrupted me when I spoke, and looked at me like I was the most interesting part of every room. We got engaged in December in private. No big announcements, no Instagram posts, just a wood-carved ring, 2 mugs of hot cocoa, and the desert sun setting behind the cliffs. Our wedding was set for May 20th. Small, meaningful, nothing flashy. Just friends, students, colleagues, and the art gallery where we met. Galileo Gallery, tucked between 2 adobe buildings and filled with imperfect beauty. I'd sent the invites. I'd confirmed the string quartet. I even had my dress, made by a former student, hand-stitched with olive branch embroidery, because Elliot said I reminded him of quiet resilience. It was all coming together, until Riley called. She said she had big news, and insisted on a family dinner. I should have known. When I walked in, I immediately saw the banner. She said yes. Balloons, a giant cake, our mother recording everything on her phone. Dad was opening champagne. Riley stood in the center of it all, glowing in a white cocktail dress, holding hands with a man I barely knew. Everyone, she announced, Jasper and I are getting married. I froze. We all had. The man had only been in the picture for 6 months, flashy, smug, always talking about his investment portfolio, like it was his personality. May 20th, she continued, beaming. Isn't that wild? Meant to be. I looked at her, then at my parents. No one said a word. That's my wedding day, I finally said. Riley laughed. Yeah, I know. But, you didn't trademark it, right? Besides, yours is just a tiny ceremony. Ours is going to be an event. We're doing it at our Lindo resort. Jasper's uncle got us the ballroom. I waited for anyone, to speak up. To say this wasn't okay. My father just shrugged. It makes sense, Lena. Riley's wedding is going to have more people, more family, more media coverage. My mother added, you can just move yours to the following weekend. It's not like it'll matter. Yours is more personal anyway. I felt like I was watching a car crash in slow motion and couldn't move. My heart was pounding, my throat dry. I'm not rescheduling, I said quietly. Riley's smile slipped. Why are you being so selfish? I stood there for another few seconds, taking it all in. The decorations, the cameras, the fact that no one saw a problem with this. Then I picked up my coat and left. My mother called after me. Think about the family, sweetheart. But I didn't look back. Not this time. It was a Thursday morning when the call came. I was at my office on campus, grading midterm design portfolios with a cold cup of coffee beside me when my phone buzzed. Hi, this is Kara from Galileo Gallery. I'm really sorry to call like this. I sat up. What's wrong? There was a pause. We've had a change in booking for May 20th. The space has been re-reserved. I blinked. No, that's not possible. That date's been ours for over a year. I know. I double-checked the records. The new reservation was made in person yesterday under Riley Caldwell. I didn't even hear the rest. Everything around me stopped. The hum of the fluorescent lights, the wind tapping on my window. I was staring at the same name that had shared my childhood, my birthday cakes, my secrets, now printed across a contract that used to belong to me. Riley hadn't just taken my date. She'd taken our place, the space Elliot and I had built a story around. The place where he first kissed me by a sculpture of shattered glass. The only place that felt like us. I hung up the phone without saying goodbye and just sat there, numb. When I told Elliot that evening, he didn't flinch. He sat beside me on the worn couch, took my hand, and let me speak. I told him everything. How they brushed me off, how Riley smiled like a victor, how my own mother said, "It's just a venue." And he just nodded, like he already knew this wound ran deeper than logistics. The next day, I drove to my parents' house, not to ask for help, but to see if there was even a shred of decency left in them. I didn't get past the second sentence. "You should have finalized your deposit earlier," Dad said, without looking up from his newspaper. I did. She outbid me. "Well," he replied, folding the paper, "you can't be surprised. Riley's wedding is going to be much larger. More exposure. It's good for the family." The family. That word kept echoing like a curse. Mom didn't even fake concern. "It's not worth all this drama, Lena. It's just a space. Don't let this ruin your relationship with your sister." I looked at her. She stole it. "She's excited," she said, like that excused everything. Be the bigger person. I had heard that phrase too many times in my life. Be the bigger person when Riley got into trouble at school, and I had to cover for her. Be the bigger person when she crashed my car at 19 and never paid me back. Be the bigger person when Mom said she wished both her daughters had turned out more like Riley. Always the bigger person. Always the shadow. I left without another word. That night, I deleted the wedding board I'd been building for 14 months. I shut down the Pinterest folders. I canceled the florist. I folded my dress back into its garment bag and zipped it up like I was sealing away a version of myself that no longer fit. Then I told Elliot I don't want to do this anymore. He looked up from his sketch pad. "Do what?" "Pretend everything's fine. Pretend that I'm okay being erased." He didn't speak right away. He simply closed the sketch pad, stood, grabbed his keys, and said, "Come with me." I followed him without question, unsure if I was running away or finally waking up. We drove in silence. It was almost 7 p.m. when Elliot turned onto Highway 285, away from the city lights. The desert stretched out beside us like a forgotten canvas, brushes of lavender sky fading into soft gold dirt. I didn't ask where we were going. I didn't care. I was exhausted, not just tired, hollow. I had been holding up too many things for too many people for too many years. And now, the one thing that was supposed to be ours had been stripped from me like it never mattered. We drove another 20 minutes into Tessuk Hills before he slowed at an unmarked turn. A tall, wrought iron gate stood ahead, half covered in ivy. A security camera clicked. The gate opened. I turned to him. "Where are we?" He didn't answer, just kept driving. We rolled through a winding gravel road surrounded by juniper trees and wild desert blooms, until a structure appeared, low, long, and made entirely of glass and stone. It shimmered in the fading light, as if it had been carved from the land itself. A private estate, a work of art. I sat up straighter. "Elliot, whose place is this?" He finally looked at me. "I designed it." "You designed it?" He nodded. "Built it. Own it." I blinked. "What do you mean, own it?" He parked beneath a curved overhang and turned off the engine. For a moment, the car went still, like the world had held its breath. "I haven't been completely honest with you," he said. "Not because I didn't trust you, but because I've seen what happens when money enters the room." My breath caught. "I grew up differently," he continued. "Quiet family, old money, but I walked away from all of it. I hated the entitlement, the performative generosity, the way people clung to status instead of substance. So I left and started over, under my own name on my own terms. That gallery where we met, I donated that installation." He smiled just barely. "I kept my profile low for a reason. I didn't want to be someone else's ticket or trophy. I just wanted someone who saw me." I didn't know what to say. I just stared at him, at the man I thought I knew, who apparently owned one of the most stunning private properties I had ever seen in my life. He opened the door and stepped out, then came around and opened mine. I followed him through a curved glass walkway into the heart of the estate. Light sensors flickered on, illuminating a minimalist interior. Polished concrete floors, soft leather, warm oak shelves stacked with art books, and a central atrium with a reflecting pool lit from below. "This is unbelievable," I whispered. He stopped beside the atrium and turned to me. "If you still want to get married on May 20th, Lena, this place is yours. All of it. For the wedding. For anything." My throat tightened. "You're not doing this to one-up Riley, are you?" "No," he said gently. "I'm doing this so no one can erase you again." I stood there in that silent, echoing space and felt something shift. Not just gratitude, not even love, but dignity. After all the bending, the shrinking, the swallowing of hurt, I was finally being offered something I didn't have to fight for. A place of my own, a future I could claim. I reached for his hand. "Then let's make it unforgettable." He smiled. She had no idea what was coming. The message came at 10:42 p.m. I was in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd gone from bride-to-be to a side character in someone else's show. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. "Jasper Blackwell just followed you on Instagram." That alone would have been weird. We'd barely spoken. I remembered him from a few family holidays, always talking over people, always with a drink in his hand, always more impressed with himself than anyone else was. But what followed made me sit up straight. DM from Jasper. "You deserve better than what they did to you. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen. Once, twice, 3 times. Part of me thought it had to be a prank. Another part, a louder, more familiar part, knew exactly what this was. Riley's picture-perfect fantasy was starting to fray at the seams. Still, I didn't answer. I locked my phone and tried to go back to sleep, but the words kept echoing. "Can we talk?" The next morning, I showed Elliot the message. He didn't look surprised. "Answer him," he said simply. "What? Why?" "Because sometimes the cracks show you more than the surface ever could." So I did. I sent one word. "Me why?" His reply was almost immediate. "Jasper, because I'm not blind. I see what's happening. And I'm starting to wonder if I'm just another prop in her story." We met the next afternoon at a quiet cafe near the old plaza. One of those places with uneven tile floors, soft jazz playing in the background, and baristas who wrote poetry on paper cups. I wore sunglasses and pulled my hoodie low. He showed up looking surprisingly normal. No flashy suit, no bravado, just a man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. He sat down without saying hello and went straight to the point. "I didn't know she stole your venue." I didn't respond. "She told me you canceled it, said you were having budget issues, and pushed your wedding to the fall." I snorted. "Of course she did." He shook his head. "That was just the start. The more we planned, the more I realized this whole thing isn't a wedding, it's a brand launch. She wants a Netflix-level production, has a videographer from some reality show, a whole content calendar, a fake backstory about us meeting in Bali." I blinked. "You didn't meet in Bali." He gave me a look. "We met at a corporate retreat in Scottsdale." She said it wasn't magical enough for the narrative. I took a slow sip of coffee. "She's marketing the marriage," he muttered, "and I'm the product." That one landed. Not because I cared about Jasper, but because I understood. I had lived in Riley's shadow long enough to know what it felt like to be turned into a tool, a background player in her endless performance. He leaned in. "I also found something else. Something I think you should see." He slid a flash drive across the table. I didn't touch it. "She has a burner phone," he said, voice low. "She hides it in her makeup drawer." I caught her texting someone at 1 a.m., giggling. When I asked, she called me paranoid. "You think she's cheating?" "I don't know. But I know this, she's lying. And she's been planning this wedding like a campaign, and you're the narrative villain." I looked down at the flash drive. "What's on it?" "Screenshots. Audio. Video. She admitted she wanted your date out of spite. Said, and I quote, she can cry later. She tried to bribe your gallery coordinator. Said she wanted to crush you. My hand shook slightly as I picked it up. Why are you giving this to me? Because I'm tired of being used. And maybe I want her to see what real consequences look like. He stood up, buttoned his jacket, and paused. Whatever you're planning, I want to help. I went home that night, opened my laptop, and played the recordings. By the time they finished, Elliot had come in, holding a glass of red wine. He looked at my face and didn't even ask. He just said, "This is why we don't back down." And I believed him, because now I wasn't just fighting for a wedding anymore. I was fighting for the last shred of self-respect my family hadn't already stolen. Elliot didn't ask me what was on the flash drive. He didn't need to. He watched me sit at the kitchen table for over an hour, staring at my laptop, listening to Riley's voice over and over again. Her laugh, her little sneers, her casual cruelty. "She'll cancel," she told the gallery coordinator. "She always does. She's soft. That space should go to someone who'll actually use it." Every time I replayed that line, something inside me cracked open. I wasn't soft. I was silent. And there's a difference. That night, Elliot made 3 quiet phone calls. I didn't hear what was said. I only heard his tone, measured, calm, deliberate. The same tone I imagined he used when negotiating land rights with stubborn clients or walking contractors through a failing build. He returned to me with one simple sentence: "We start tomorrow." The next morning, our custom invitations arrived, sealed in deep green envelopes with gold foil lettering and wax seals. Elliot had commissioned them months ago, before everything happened. I never imagined we'd still be using them, but now they felt different. They felt like a declaration. Each invitation contained a private RSVP code, no website, no links, no hashtags, just a number. That number unlocked directions to Sagewind Estate, the property no one knew existed unless Elliot allowed it. The guest list? Hand-picked. Artists, curators, professors, former students who had become something, survivors of sibling betrayal, quiet women who had endured too long and now had a reason to celebrate. A week later, the rumors started. It began with a blog post on Southwest Artline, a secret wedding rumored to feature renowned architect Elliot Montgomery and a private art estate hidden in Tussock Hills. Then came the whispers in the faculty lounge. Then came the DMs. And finally, the call from Riley. 2 weeks of silence. And then suddenly, ping. "Riley, hey sis. Just wanted to let you know we're releasing our wedding trailer this weekend. Thought I'd give you a heads up since your wedding might feel a little understated in comparison." I stared at the message. My hands didn't even tremble. She wanted to bait me. I let her talk. What she didn't know was that her wedding trailer would never see the light of day. Not after what happened next. Because 3 days later, the Albuquerque Journal published an exclusive feature. Architectural heir Elliot Montgomery to wed artist educator Lena Caldwell in private estate ceremony. Guest list includes regional leaders, curators, and national media figures. By noon, it had over 20,000 shares. And by 3 p.m., Riley messaged me again. "Riley, all caps, why is Jasper refusing to finalize our guest list? What did you tell him?" I didn't respond. I was sitting beside Elliot in the courtyard of Sagewind, helping arrange seating assignments. The sun was warm, the air smelled like cedar and lemon tea, and for the first time in weeks, I felt still. "Do you want her seated far from the press?" Elliot asked, half smiling. I looked up. "She's not invited." He didn't ask again. At the center of the guest list, a name had been circled in ink. Margaret Yates, editor-in-chief of Modern Woman. Riley had been trying to get featured in that magazine for 2 years. Margaret was coming to our wedding. I didn't gloat. I didn't scream. I simply stared at the name and whispered, "Let her find out the way I did in public." Elliot leaned over, kissed the top of my head, and murmured, "She will." And so the stage was set. One wedding built on love, the other on image. one with roots, the other only mirrors, and only one would survive what was coming next. I thought I'd be nervous, but the morning our names hit the press, I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. I was smiling. The sun was barely up, and already my phone buzzed nonstop. Calls, emails, messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Colleagues, former classmates, old professors, even students I once mentored who now ran their own studios. They all said the same thing. I didn't know. I'm proud of you. But the one person I didn't expect to hear from showed up at my door. Jasper. He looked different. Polished, yes, but quieter. Like someone who'd just stepped off a battlefield and hadn't quite realized the war was over. He handed me a small velvet box. I blinked. What's this? He looked around, made sure we were alone, then said, Insurance. Inside was a flash drive. My stomach turned. She doesn't know I kept it. She thought I deleted it after the engagement party. I didn't. What's on it? More than enough. He leaned closer, his voice barely audible. Voice memos, screenshots, recordings, her telling friends she bribed the gallery coordinator, her laughing that you'd cry later. She admitted she only moved the wedding up to erase you. I stared at him. She said the only way she could shine was if your light went out. I closed the box slowly. Why are you giving me this now? Because I'm done pretending. And maybe, he looked down, maybe I need to see her lose something for once. 2 days later, Riley posted her wedding trailer. Lavish shots, fake laughs, a dramatic slow-motion moment of her walking down an empty hall like she was starring in a perfume ad, and a caption that read, Can't wait to say I do to forever. May 20th, it's happening. It had 43,000 views in 6 hours. But at the same time, another video was circulating in private circles. It wasn't public. Not yet, but it was ready. Elliot had spent the past week working with a small AV team, friends from his architecture firm who owed him favors. They took the audio files, the text screenshots, the video clips Jasper provided, and turned them into a single, polished, devastating 6-minute reel. 6 minutes. That's all it would take to end her fantasy. We didn't tell anyone, not even my parents, because some things are more powerful when they hit without warning. That night, Elliot and I sat on the patio, watching the sun disappear behind the red hills. He held my hand but didn't say a word, and I realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't shrinking. For the first time in my adult life, I was standing at full height, and the world would just have to adjust. The next morning, Riley messaged again. Riley, just saw the guest list on Southwest Society. How the hell did you get Margaret Yates? I didn't respond. Instead, I texted Elliot 2 words, play it. At 9:02 a.m., the video went live. Not on social media, not on YouTube, but on a secured RSVP-only page linked to our wedding invite. Anyone attending our wedding would see it. Everyone Riley had tried to impress, and they'd see it first. By noon, the fallout had begun. Riley's PR manager sent a frantic email to her sponsors. We were unaware of ongoing personal issues. Please pause public-facing collaborations until further notice. 3 brands pulled out. 2 more went silent. By 3 p.m., she called me. I didn't pick up. By 6 p.m., she called Elliot. He didn't even glance at the phone. At 10:17 p.m., she posted a cryptic story on Instagram. Some people will do anything for attention. Watch who you trust. But no one responded. Her likes were down 80%. Her comment section? Brutal. And this was just the beginning. Because May 20th was coming, and she had no idea what we had saved for the reception. The day began in silence. Not the anxious kind, not the hollow stillness that follows grief. This was clarity. The sky above Sagewind was cloudless. The early morning air was cool, the kind that wraps around your shoulders like a silk shawl. I watched from the bridal suite as black cars began lining the driveway, their engines low and discreet, windows tinted. Names I had only seen on book jackets or museum plaques stepped out into the light, brushing desert dust from expensive shoes. Margaret Yates arrived at 11:08 a.m. Aidan followed at 11:12. He didn't say a word when I met him at the hallway door, just handed me a final seating chart and nodded. "She's not on it," he said. I nodded back. "Good." The ceremony began exactly at 2 p.m., the same time Riley had claimed for herself. The string quartet played the piece Elliot composed for me, soft and soaring, full of little unresolved moments that melted into resolution just when you thought they wouldn't. As I walked down the aisle, I didn't feel nerves. I felt weightless. My dress was simple. Satin. No train. No veil. But I saw the way the crowd leaned forward, the way they watched, not just out of curiosity, but reverence. They weren't here for gossip. They were here for truth. When I reached Elliot, he didn't speak. He just took my hand like he'd done 100 times before, like I was already home. We said our vows beneath an arch of wild desert roses and olive branches, with the hills behind us holding their breath. When the officiant pronounced us married, the applause was warm, respectful, but it wasn't until the reception that the fire truly began. Elliot stepped up to give his toast, glass in hand. Tie loosened. The room had dimmed slightly with the dusk, casting everything in gold. "Thank you all for being here," he began. "Today isn't just about love. It's about truth, and standing up when someone tries to silence you." People turned toward him. Some exchanged looks. "My wife," he said, pausing to let the word settle, had her wedding nearly stolen from her. The venue, the date, even her dignity. But instead of shrinking, she rose. He looked at me. I nodded once. Then he gestured to the AV team in the corner. "And today we'd like to share the full story." The lights dimmed. The screen behind us lit up. It started with Riley's voice, recorded on Jasper's phone, crystal clear. "She'll cancel. She always does. She's soft. That gallery is mine." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then came the screenshots, her text to the coordinator offering extra compensation to bump my reservation. Her message to Jasper, "This is my year. She can cry later." Murmurs. Disbelief. Then came the final clip. A hidden video, her laughing over dinner, makeup half done, wine glass in hand. If she really loved that guy, she'd step aside. He's just some artsy nobody. I'm the one with the real wedding. She's just background noise. When the lights came back on, no one spoke, until the applause started. Not polite, not reluctant. It was thunder, and that's when the doors slammed open. Riley stood at the back of the room, still in her designer gown, mascara streaked alone. She took 2 steps forward, saw the faces, heard the silence, and froze. Then came the final blow. Our mother stood up. "Talia!" she said, calling Riley by her middle name, the one only used when something was terribly wrong. "Enough. Leave." Riley's face crumpled. "What?" "You've embarrassed this family enough." "This isn't your day," she added, quieter but sharper. Riley didn't argue. She turned and walked out. The doors closed behind her. I exhaled. Slowly. It was done, but the echo would keep rippling, and she had no idea how far it would go. 3 days later, I received a letter. Not a text, not an email, a handwritten note, no return address. Inside was a single sentence. "This isn't over. You stole everything from me. Just wait." I folded the paper, placed it in a drawer, and closed it without another thought. Because by then, Riley had already lost everything that mattered to her. And I had already gained what she never understood. A life that didn't need her approval to mean something. The wind off the Arno was warm, like a hand brushing hair from my face. Elliot and I sat in a cafe tucked between 2 stone alleys in Florence. Our coffee cups were half empty, the sun catching in the edges of his glasses, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to brace myself for anything. There were no headlines waiting, no texts, no last-minute cancellations or demands to be the bigger person. Just quiet, just us. We spent 10 days wandering the city like we had nothing to prove. Mornings in the Uffizi, afternoons sketching doorways in forgotten courtyards, evenings drinking wine in silence, the kind of silence that wasn't awkward, just full. One night, as we watched the sunset from Piazzale Michelangelo, Elliot turned to me and said, "You look lighter." "I feel lighter," I replied, like I put something down I didn't even know I was carrying. That was the thing about being erased for so long. You didn't always notice the weight until it was gone. When we returned to Santa Fe, there was a letter waiting from the dean of my department. They'd seen the wedding coverage, seen the video, heard from donors and alumni. They wanted to offer me a new role, Director of Arts and Equity Initiatives, with funding to start a mentorship program for underrepresented student artists. I said yes, and something in me opened. The program started small, just 6 students, some first-generation college kids, one who had been told she wasn't commercial enough, another who'd been bullied for drawing abstract instead of realism. I saw pieces of myself in each of them, the parts that had been told to shrink, to soften, to step aside. I told them what no one ever told me. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to be clear. And they listened. Meanwhile, Riley disappeared. Her Instagram went blank. No more brand deals. No more curated brunch tables or wedding countdown reels. Her management dropped her. Her sponsors pulled out. Even the skincare brand she was developing issued a quiet termination notice. According to a neighbor, she moved back in with our parents. I never confirmed it. I didn't need to, because for the first time in my life, her silence didn't feel like a threat. It felt like closure. A few weeks later, I ran into our mother at the co-op. She was bagging oranges, wearing sunglasses indoors. She didn't speak to me, just stood there, waiting for me to pass. I looked at her for a moment. The same woman who once said, "Don't make trouble, just be graceful." The same woman who told me to adjust, because Riley's wedding had more press. I didn't feel anger. Not anymore. I just felt sad for how small her world had become. And I walked on. Some nights, I still think about the moment it all turned. Not when Riley stole the venue. Not when Elliot revealed Sagewind. Not even when the video went live. It was the moment I said, "I'm done pretending." That's when everything began. That's when I stopped living for apologies I would never get and started living for myself. Riley tried to take everything from me, but in the end, she gave me what she never meant to, a reason to rise, a reason to claim my name again, a reason to choose myself, fully, unapologetically, permanently, and I'll never give that back. I was at work reviewing supplier compliance reports when my phone buzzed for the 5th time in a row. All the missed calls were from the same number, home. I stepped outside the food safety lab, assuming something urgent had happened. But the second I answered, my father's voice exploded into my ear, furious and loud, as if I'd just committed some heinous crime. "Are you mocking us, Clara? What is this? What is this insult of an amount?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" He wasn't listening. "You call yourself our daughter and send us 50 cents? 50! Are you out of your mind?" My mother's voice followed right after, sharp and bitter. "You really are selfish, Clara. Living alone, spending on yourself while we struggle. Sienna sends 4,000 every month. 4,000! Why can't you be like her for once?" I couldn't breathe for a second. I stepped back, gripping the metal railing outside the building as if it could hold me together. "That's not true. I've been sending $4,000 every month, properly, from my account. You should check. Don't lie," my father spat. "Sienna told us everything. She's the one sending money. You're just sitting around doing nothing while your sister sacrifices for us. You've always been like this, disappointing." The line went dead. I stood there for a moment, not even realizing my hand was shaking. I had worked every weekend as a warehouse checker at a 24-hour supermarket, skipping dinners, skipping life, just to send money home. I had done it not because they asked, but because for once I thought I could be seen. I thought maybe this was how I finally got to matter. But even now it wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. They thought I sent 50 cents. I walked back into the lab, eyes unfocused, ears ringing. I stared at the sample sheet in front of me and saw nothing but the number. For $1,000. My rent was $950. My salary was just under $3,000. I had to cover the rest through weekend shifts and cutting my own meals short, just to hit that number, just to be seen. And now they spat on it. My name is Clara Monroe. I'm 28 years old, a quality assurance analyst at a mid-sized food packaging plant in Cincinnati, Ohio. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment with a view of nothing special. I get up at 5 a.m. every Saturday to catch the bus to the supermarket where I work nights in a freezing warehouse. And still, somehow, I was never the good daughter. Sienna, my younger sister by 5 years, had always been the star. Tall, dazzling, born with a face that drew compliments like flowers draw bees. She had been called angelic since she was in kindergarten. She always got the last piece of cake, the new clothes, the private music lessons. I got her hand-me-downs in silence. Still, I had never expected that after all these years, after working 2 jobs and living on rice and canned beans, they would still believe I was the selfish one. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stared at the bedroom ceiling until morning and asked myself the same question over and over. What am I to them? Growing up, I learned early that being the older sister didn't mean being looked up to. It meant being invisible. My earliest memories aren't of birthday candles or bedtime stories, but of standing at the kitchen doorway, watching my parents fuss over Sienna like she was made of glass and gold. She's got that spark, my mother used to say, brushing Sienna's hair as if it were spun silk. That face belongs on TV. Strangers in grocery stores would stop us. What a gorgeous little girl, they'd coo, leaning toward Sienna. She should be a model. Then they'd glance at me and say nothing. At first, I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't in this family to win beauty contests. But when you're 7 years old and wearing secondhand jeans that don't quite fit while your sister twirls in brand new dresses from the boutique downtown, you start to feel it. The difference. It was in everything. When I wanted to join the school choir, my parents told me the fees were too high. It's just singing, Clara. Focus on your studies. But when Sienna said she wanted ballet lessons, the check was written the same day. She didn't even like ballet. When Sienna wanted her own room, my parents looked at me and said, "It's only fair. She needs space to grow. You don't need much, Clara." So I packed up my clothes and moved into the living room, next to the old cabinet with our grandparents' photographs. No one asked me if I was okay with it. They just assumed I'd understand, because I always did. It was my grandfather, Walter Monroe, who made me feel like I was more than background noise. He was the one who held my hand during thunderstorms, who brought me violets every spring, who sat me on his lap and told me stories about brave women and quiet victories. He was the one who named me Clara, because you were born just as the violets bloomed, because you'll grow strong and quiet like them. He died when I was 9, and from then on, there was no one left in that house who really saw me. I didn't complain when I had to wear shoes with soles flapping. I didn't protest when Sienna borrowed my markers and never returned them. I didn't cry when she told me, "You can't borrow my stuff. It's mine, but I can use yours, you don't care." When I brought it up, my parents said the same thing every time. "Clara, let it go. You're the older one. Be mature. Sienna's still a child." Even when she lied, even when she screamed at me for things I hadn't done, even when she broke my science project the night before the fair, and I had to present a paper instead of a model, no one ever scolded her. No one ever apologized to me. I used to think maybe it would change, that one day they'd look at me and say, "Clara, we see you. We're proud of you." But that day never came. Instead, what came was Sienna's acceptance letter to a top-tier university, fully funded by our parents. And me? I didn't even get a chance to apply. "We can't afford it," they said. "You should find a job after high school." Think about Sienna's future, too. They weren't poor. Not really. But when it came to choosing between the two of us, they always knew who deserved more. And it was never me. I was 21 when I moved out. It wasn't out of rebellion. It was survival. I just started working at a food packaging company 3 train stops from home. And though the salary wasn't great, I thought maybe if I stayed at home a few years, I could save enough to go back to school or just breathe. But even after high school, nothing changed. I was still the afterthought. Still the one who had to wait to shower. Still the one who ate dinner alone if Sienna was in a mood. Still the one expected to step aside when her voice got louder. So one evening, without telling anyone, I packed 2 suitcases, grabbed a used microwave from a Craigslist ad, and rented a studio apartment downtown. It was small, drafty in the winter. The water heater clicked like it had asthma. But it was mine. Living alone was the first time I ever felt at peace. I saw my parents now and then, at birthdays, holidays, sometimes not even that. But I always called. I always sent cards. I always remembered anniversaries. Maybe I thought that would be enough to prove I still cared. Then came the phone call from Sienna. She sounded different, less performative, maybe even sincere. "I've been thinking," she said. "Mom and Dad gave us everything. I want to start giving back." I stayed quiet. She went on, voice unusually enthusiastic. "We should send them money, Clara. A thank you. Just $4,000 a month. Between the two of us. I mean, I'll cover most of it. I make more than you. But I thought we could do it together." For $1,000? That was more than I paid in rent and food combined. I hesitated. "That's a lot, Sienna." She giggled. "Modeling pays well, you know. I've been doing some influencer gigs too. And anyway, I think Mom and Dad would be really touched. We could surprise them. Oh, and let's send it under a fun name. Maybe Rain. So they won't know right away." I didn't understand the point of the secrecy, but something about her tone, hopeful, bright, made me want to believe. That maybe Sienna was finally growing up. That maybe this could be our shared olive branch. I agreed. That night, I opened a joint transfer app and scheduled $2,000 for my savings to go out the next morning. My salary was just shy of $3,000. That meant I'd have to find another $1,000 every month. So I picked up a weekend job at a nearby supermarket, night shift in the stockroom. It was cold in the winter, humid in the summer, and smelled faintly of onions and bleach. I stopped ordering takeout, cut my phone plan, sold my bike, anything to keep the numbers working. There were nights I came home, peeled off my uniform, and collapsed onto the mattress without changing clothes. I set alarms to study for a small business consultant certification, hoping I could climb up at work and eventually make more. But every time I felt the ache in my back, every time I counted coins at the register, I told myself it was worth it. This is how you prove you love them, Clara. This is how you earn your place. And so every month, without fail, I sent $2,000, signed from Clara Monroe. The other $2,000, I assumed Sienna was sending it too. That's what we agreed. That's what I believed. The first time they yelled at me, I thought it was a mistake. A glitch in the transfer, a miscommunication. But when I explained, when I told them clearly, I've been sending $2,000 every month under my name, my father snapped, "Don't lie. We know it's Sienna who's been sending $4,000. You only sent 50 cents. 50 cents. At first I laughed, a hollow sound that died before it reached my lips. "Dad, check the receipts," I said quietly. "Check the transaction logs." But he wasn't listening. My mother took over, her tone bitter, disgusted. "Sienna is smart. She's successful. She sends us what she earns with pride. Meanwhile, you're off wasting money, pretending you're a martyr. They believed her. They believed that Rain, the name Sienna insisted we use, was her stage name, her mark of generosity. And when they saw the other, Transfer, mine labeled clearly as Clara Monroe, they assumed it was the insult, the joke, the spare change I threw at them to save face. I remembered, then, the way Sienna had laughed when she picked that nickname. Let's send it as Rain. You know, something pretty. It hadn't been about being pretty. It had been about stealing the spotlight. Again, before I could say another word, my father shouted, "We don't need your mockery. Keep your 50 cents." And then they hung up. I sat in silence. My apartment was dim, the only light coming from the microwave clock blinking 1 a.m. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But my jaw tightened and something inside me broke. I needed to know the truth. The next morning, I called Harper. Harper Lee wasn't just my high school best friend. She was one of the few people I trusted in this world. She worked in consulting now, sharp as ever, with a voice like a scalpel. If something was off, she'd find it. We met for lunch at a diner near her office. I hadn't even finished telling the full story when she leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "Clara, you're too kind. That's your problem. You've been bleeding for a family that would never even give you a Band-Aid." I blinked. She went on, voice low, deliberate. "Let me ask you something. Your parents, are they really broke? Or are they just used to guilt-tripping you into giving them money?" "I mean, they said there were debts from raising us." Harper scoffed. "You didn't even go to college. Sienna got the degree, the new clothes, the room to herself. What part of the spending was on you?" I didn't answer. Harper leaned closer. "Do you even know what Sienna does with her money? Or if she even makes money?" The words sat in my stomach like ice. Later that night, Harper called again. Her voice was flat. I asked around. Sienna doesn't have real gigs, just scraps from online catalogs. She posts throwbacks to old shoots to make it look like she's working. And get this, someone told me she's been telling her friends, my sister supports me. I don't even need to work full time. My throat went dry. Also, Harper added, your dad? He's not working full shifts. He's been spotted at that sketchy casino outside town. And your mom? She's been bragging about her new designer bag. Gucci, I think. Everything inside me burned. I had starved, worked in freezing warehouses, sacrificed sleep, weekends, and peace for them, and they used that money to gamble, to shop, to lie. That night, I stopped the payments, and I promised myself I would never give them another dollar, not unless they knew what it cost me to earn it. 2 months passed. I ignored the calls, the texts, the guilt-laced voicemails from my mother. I blocked Sienna on every platform. Silence was the only language I had left, and for the first time it felt powerful. Until one morning, just past 8 a.m., my phone rang again. I don't know why I answered. Maybe I was ready. Maybe I wanted to hear it. "Clara!" Sienna barked. "Why haven't you been answering? Why did you stop sending money? Are you out of your mind?" She sounded frantic. Not angry, panicked. "I'm already drowning in expenses. I told Mom and Dad it was from both of us, and now they think I lied." There it was, the truth she had danced around for years. "You did lie," I said flatly. There was silence. I continued, calm and slow. "You said it would be our gift. Equal. You never told them I was the one sending the money. And now you're mad because your story is falling apart." She started to speak, but I didn't let her. "Do you know how many weekends I spent in a freezer just to send that money? While you were getting facials and throwing influencer brunches." More silence. "I know about the debt," I added. "Or should I say the lack of debt? There never was any, was there?" She tried to deflect. "You don't get it. The modeling world is brutal. I'm doing my best." "No, you're not," I said. "You're doing what you've always done. Using people." Then I hung up. But the fallout was only beginning. A week later, My parents showed up at my apartment without warning. Sienna was with them. Their faces were drawn, tired, but their eyes lit up the second I opened the door. "Clara, there you are!" my mother exclaimed, like this was a reunion, not a reckoning. "We've been trying to reach you," my father added. "We need your help, just a little loan, to get us through this rough patch." Sienna stood behind them, lips trembling. "Please, I made a mistake. I thought I could pull it off. I thought the new agency was real." I stared at her. "What agency?" She looked down. Then it all spilled out. Sienna had been scouted, so she thought, by a premium talent agency in New York. They promised her a lead role in an indie film and a contract if she could pay an entrance investment fee. So, naturally, she asked our parents for help. My father gave up his early retirement fund. My mother took out a personal loan. Sienna wired the money. And then silence. No one from the agency ever called back. No contract. No contact. It was a scam. And they'd lost everything. The house had to be sold to cover the loan defaults. They moved into a crumbling apartment complex on the east side of town. My father picked up temp jobs to stay afloat. My mother started cleaning offices. Sienna, jobless, humiliated, bounced between nightclubs, trying to earn tips as a hostess. But her attitude made her impossible to keep. They had come to me as a last resort, and I looked at them like strangers. You threw away my trust. You chose her lies over my reality, and now you want my help. My mother flinched. My father's jaw tightened. Sienna whispered, "Please, Clara, we don't have anyone else." I stared at them a long time. Then I said without blinking, "Before you come to me, go to the police. Go to a therapist. Go to the mirror." And then, for the second time that year, I closed the door in their faces. The knock came again, louder this time, more desperate. I didn't answer. I watched from behind the curtain as they stood there, shifting on the porch like they still belonged. My father was checking his watch. My mother whispered something into Sienna's ear. Sienna just stared at the floor like a child who finally realized there were no more toys left to break. Eventually they left, but not before sliding an envelope under the door. Inside was a single piece of paper, hastily written. "No, dear Clara. No, we're sorry." Just a list of numbers. And a final line scrawled at the bottom. "We'll use your grandfather's savings if you refuse to help. Consider this your last chance." My blood went cold. That money wasn't theirs. It wasn't even for them. Grandpa Walter had left it in a trust in my name when he passed. He'd seen something in me back then. Something he wanted to protect. Something he wanted to survive. And now they wanted to rip even that away. I didn't hesitate. I went to the bank the next morning and transferred the entire amount into a secured investment account under legal lock. I changed my number. I notified my landlord not to forward anything from unknown senders. I deleted every old voicemail, every text, and then I breathed. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about finally standing up and saying no more. No more pretending. No more trying. No more believing that if I just loved them harder, they'd eventually see me. They never would. I wasn't their daughter. I was their resource, their afterthought, their backup plan when Sienna's charm failed to cash out. So I stopped playing the role. I stopped answering to the version of Clara they'd created in their heads. Weeks passed, then months. The silence became comfort, not punishment. I focused on work. I took the certification exam I'd been studying for and passed with top scores. Harper helped me apply to a new consulting firm in Columbus, bigger, better pay, with actual opportunity for growth. They hired me as a team leader. I moved into a sunlit apartment near the river, the kind with hardwood floors and a little balcony where I could grow violets, just like the ones Grandpa loved. One afternoon, as I was unpacking a box of books, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Harper. "You've come a long way. I hope you see that." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I replied, I do. For the first time. I really do. And I meant it. 5 years later, I would think back to that day as the real beginning of my life. Not the day I graduated. Not the day I moved out. But the day I chose myself. The day I let them go. And watched myself rise in the silence they left behind. 5 years. That's how long it had been since I last heard their voices. In that time, I got promoted twice. I mentored 3 junior analysts. I built a tiny garden on my apartment balcony and learned how to make bread from scratch. I traveled. I read. I laughed more than I thought I ever would. And I never once looked back. Not until Harper's wedding. It was a warm October afternoon in Miami. Sky like silk. Breeze rolling off the ocean with just enough salt to remind you where you were. The ceremony was held in a seaside chapel, small but radiant, filled with soft music and the kind of laughter that only comes from people who truly love each other. Harper looked stunning. Her gown simple, her eyes brighter than I'd ever seen them. She had always been the strong one, the one who pulled people back from the edge, the one who reminded me that love didn't have to be something you begged for. Her husband, Michael, was kind, patient, the sort of man who never needed to be the loudest in the room. Together, they looked like a promise finally fulfilled. As the reception settled into a rhythm of toasts and slow dancing, Harper came over and took my hand. "Clara," she grinned, "there's someone I want you to meet." I followed her to the edge of the terrace, where a tall man stood watching the ocean. Tan suit, light beard, smile that flickered even before he turned to face me. "This is Nick," Harper said, nudging me. "Architect. Heart of gold. Has a thing for violets, apparently." Nick laughed, the sound low and easy. "Only because they're stubborn flowers. They bloom, quietly, even when nobody's watching." I raised an eyebrow. "That sounds familiar." He looked at me then, and I swear, for a moment, it felt like the world paused. We talked the rest of the night. About books, cities, how the Midwest teaches you to hold silence like armor. How sometimes letting go of your family is the only way to build one of your own. He didn't ask me what happened, and I didn't offer it. Some things don't need to be explained to be understood. Later, as the evening faded into candlelight and the DJ started playing soft jazz, I stepped outside to the balcony alone. The sky stretched wide, cloudless, infinite. The kind of sky Grandpa Walter would have loved. I closed my eyes. "Are you watching, Grandpa?" I whispered. "Your Clara's okay now. I'm blooming, just like you said I would." Somewhere in the distance, a bell rang softly. I smiled. Maybe this wasn't revenge. Maybe it was just freedom. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most powerful ending of all.